2012 murder case from right here in Utah. The brutal killing of Riverton's Kasprzak remained a mystery for more than 2 years. Then her ex-boyfriend, Darwin Bagshaw, was arrested. He pleaded guilty just a few months ago and last week was sentenced to at least 15 years in prison. A case closed, but certainly not the end of suffering for Annie's family, as you'll hear in this statement that didn't air during the Dateline Special.
Even pleading guilty, even being incarcerated, he will always have moments that Annie will never get the opportunity to have.
Tonight, there are other new revelations about this tragedy in our state.
It tore him up inside. And you know, as cops, they know what happens.
That's Shante Johnson, the widow of Draper Police Sergeant Derek Johnson, who was the initial lead detective on the Kasprzak case. As you can tell by the Dateline NBC story that just aired, that murder case is one that took a lot of time to solve. In the end, though, Draper detectives got this one right. But it certainly came at a huge personal cost for all those involved. News specialist Alex Cabrero, who covered some of those first stories on this murder case, spoke to Sergeant Johnson's widow today. Alex, I'm sure this Dateline story brought back a lot of emotions.
It certainly did, Mike, especially since Sergeant Johnson was murdered himself in 2013. However, a year earlier, as you mentioned, he was the lead detective on the Kasprzak case, which brought him here to the Jordan River Parkway in Draper. He didn't share all the gory details with his wife, but she knew this really affected him.
We get used to and we become calloused to them not coming home and being out late and working late shifts.
There's a saying out there that the only job harder than being a police officer is being the spouse of a police officer.
When they come home, we really get to see how it really hits home.
Shante Johnson remembers how much her late husband, Draper Police Sergeant Derek Johnson, loved his job. She also remembers how much the first murder case he was in charge of affected him.
I remember for the first time really understanding what Derek does for a living.
That case was the murder of 15-year-old Ann Kasprzak, whose body was found in the Jordan River.
But I remember it being days before Derek finally came home. And he was so exhausted, and I think he slept for like 4 hours and got up and had like 90 voicemails.
Sergeant Johnson didn't share all the details with her, but she knew he saw things you just don't forget.
It tore him up inside. And you know, as cops, they know what happens. He's seen the gory images of and saw what happened to her. He had to see it and deal with it and touch it and communicate with her parents.
When Derek was promoted to sergeant, the case was given to another detective, though he was still involved with it. Then, in 2013, Derek was killed. And although he never got to see the conclusion of this case, Shante did.
It makes me want to shout for joy because I'm like, it's closed, it worked. And I know that he helped from the other side to line everything up, to bring justice to this case and closure for her family.
Now, I asked Johnson if it was going to be tough seeing this Dateline NBC story because of all the memories that it might bring back up, but she said no, because ultimately justice was done. The guy who did it is now in prison, and a lot of that early work in the case was because of Derek. She is proud. David, Mike?
Yeah, and she has every reason to be proud. All right, great story. Alex, thank you. Deanie?